Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. This is Ken HD here, and welcome to playthrough number 12 of Eden. In the end, there was only 2. Now, judging by how the last playthrough ended, this could potentially, most likely, hoping to be the final playthrough of Eden plus Mosaic. It's been a nice story. This really has been a really nice story. I was expecting a lot more, but then again, it's definitely an older visual novel, and I did kind of sack this game for probably a good solid 2 or 3 years. So for me personally, it's really nice that I'm finally about to reach the conclusion of this visual novel that I've just never went and completed on my own. And with that, it will be definitely close the doors to an old time period and open the doors to a new beginning in visual novels on this channel, on this stream, and everything. I definitely am planning to change up a lot of things. Well, man, not a lot, but I'm definitely planning to change up some things in the future going on forward after we finish with Eden. But Eden, I wanted to make it just that one game that I make sure I complete to just to conclude like the saga, the story, like just to conclude. So I feel a lot more comfortable moving forward and trying to do new things. But that's for another video, that's for later. Right now, it's Eden, and Shion looks like it's not going to be in the best state going forward from here. It seems like we went through a little bit of a time lapse, so Shion's already in her deathbed at this point, already in her deathbed. We're about to see what happens from here. So, let us not waste any time. Let's get straight to it. After Maya's departure. When I knocked and opened the door, she was already awake. She sat upright and gazed aimlessly with a dazzled look in her eyes.
Ohayo, Shion.
I walked up to her bedside with a tray which contained breakfast for 2.
Ohayo gozaimasu.
I don't know, she looks totally fine to me if you ask me. Shion gave a tiny nod, her eyes drowsy.
Mare migi.
Ha? Naze da?
What? Was she that out of it? She's trying to give out military phrases. Let me exit out of Steam because that's gonna be popping up. I looked at her doubtfully as she shook her head side to side.
今日は起きるの。朝食もちゃんと今で食べる。持ってきてもらったのにごめん。
Shion、無理をしなくていいんだ。
今日は大事な日だから起きる。
It is? Is it your birthday?
何よりも大事なのは
私の体、わかってる。でもごめん。今日起きるために体力を温存してきたの。だから平気。
わかった。
When it came down to it, I couldn't fight her. Who could look into those determined eyes and say no? They were different from the innocent eyes of a mere child. Those eyes possessed both honesty and a strength which had never been sullied despite the many, many years behind them.
りょう？
ああ、わかってる。起きるなとはもう言わない。
そうじゃなくて、私着替えたいの。
Nani?
悪い。
I turned around and headed for the door. It felt to me as though Shion had changed in some way since Maya left. Before, she had mentioned wanting to get in the bath together, but lately it was common for her to get oddly embarrassed. I was sure it was a change for the better. No, that definitely was Maya's influence. She's definitely become more physically conscious of Ryou. That's the opposite gender.
ごちそうさま。
The breakfast menu was modest as always, consisting of bread, egg, salad, and vegetable soup. However, Shion only took a small sip of the soup.
もう少し食わないと体が持たないぞ。
残してごめん。でも、今さら食事量を増やしても、大して結果は変わらない。
I wanted to ask her what results she meant, but I held my tongue. Since Shion would, without a doubt, answer point blank. Like my death. Like, what do you mean, results? My death.
残
Duh.
りは亮が食べて。
Doesn't matter how much I eat, I'm gonna die anyways. Fucking Shion, dude. I nodded silently and pulled her leftovers over to me. Our food situation wasn't so well off that we could throw any away.
食べ終わったらでいいから。
外に行きたいのか？
ちゃんとこの目で見たいの。
どうせここからじゃ何も見えないぞ。
わかってる。だけどベッドの上でのんびりその時を待つのは無責任すぎると思うから。
そうか。
I gobbled down Shion's leftover bread in one bite.
だってこれが最後なんだもの。
Christ. Okay, yeah, this is the end. Okay. Alright. Let's prep ourselves. 9:51:41 a.m. I checked the digital display of the military issued wristwatch I hadn't worn in some time. This watch, created with a stress on precision and durability, could endure use even on the battlefield. It had never failed me and continued to tick away
ちょう
accurately.
どいい時間だな。
I whispered to myself, then looked at Shion as she slowly made her way forward. It hardly showed on her face, but I sensed she was excited to some extent.
疲れてないか？
最近動物や虫が少なくなった気がする。
よく気づいたな。
It happened all the time, so it didn't bother me that my questions had been completely ignored. But still, she perceived the changes on the mountains very well for someone who was almost always
明らか
bedridden.
に鳥や虫の声は減っているな。ただ、死んでるわけじゃなさそうだ。
移動してるの？
多分な。何か危機を感じているのかもしれない。
どこへ逃げてもそんなに変わらないと思う。
それも分かっているのかもな。だが、無駄だと分かっていても、最後まであがいてしまうのが生き物の性だろう。
動物は無駄とか有益とか考えない。生きることに夢中なだけ。
夢中なのは人類も同じだな。
A cold wind blew by us. Shion stopped in place and looked behind a
夢中
hill.
になって多くの犠牲も払って、その最後の結果が
もうすぐだな。
Very soon, the final ship would take off into space. Upon it rode the very last people left on this planet, and all their hopes and dreams as they headed towards the
マヤ
future.
もちゃんと乗ってるかな。
あいつは、あれで抜け目がない。取り残されるようなことはないだろう。
人類は生まれ育った星を出てどこへ向かうと思う？
My train of thought was halted by her unexpected
それ
question.
は、人工的な生活空間を確保して、同時に居住可能な惑星と新たなエネルギーを求めての旅を。
そうじゃない。
Ah, we got this scene again. Shion shook her head with a thin smile.
人はみんな旅をする。それは当たり前のこと。何千年も何万年も前から旅を繰り返して、どこかにたどり着き、そこで暮らし、また旅立って。今度は少しスケールが違うだけ。準備にかけた時間の長さと、カバンに詰め込んだパンの量が多いだけ。この星での長い旅の果てには滅びが待ってた。今度はどうなるのかな。
どんな運命が待っていようと、人間はどこかへ向かうことをやめやしない。行き止まりにぶつかっても、かつて君がそうしたように、壁を壊してでも新しい道を作り出す。
壊れた壁の瓦礫の上には多くの死が横たわることになる。
記憶は受け継がれていくんだ。
I too looked into the distance, beyond the hill, at the mountains which stayed the same year round. Before long, I was sure this familiar scenery too would begin to change. How I wished I was wrong.
りょう、 ここにいるのがあなたでよかった。
Shion smiled sweetly and then took my hand. I immediately squeezed back and returned to smile on my own. Lately, I found that I've been able to smile again. It was because she was smiling and happy. Whenever I smiled, she seemed delighted too.
時間は？
おっと。
I quickly looked down at my wristwatch. 9:58 a.m. There were 2 minutes to go.
さあ、始まるな。
Ah, they're about to go.
この星の空に最後の奇跡が刻まれる。
We both fell silent. We kept quiet and looked up at the sky. Though the spaceport was quite far, and we probably couldn't make anything out from here, I was glad all the same. The sky was so blue, and even that anomalous red star which glistened through the gaps in the white clouds seemed beautiful. The digital display on my watch read 10 a.m. The appointed hour. There was a rumble from far, far away. It was like a baby's first cry, and a scream into the doors of death all at once. An ear-splitting reverberation with such force that it contended with all the celestial bodies in the distant sky ahead. I had no doubt it was an auditory illusion, but I could hear that vigorous echo plain as day, and I was sure Shion could hear it too. At that point, Shion had clutched into Elika's lock of hair. With it tightly gripped in one hand, she looked up at the sky and stretched her other hand towards to the heavens.
行っちゃえ。
Yeah, that's that. That's Eden. She whispered affectionately. She turned to the sky with a smile on her face and waved her hand. Maybe, just maybe, she could see those travelers as they set out on their journey. And thus mission complete. Humanity is gone. Something whiffed past my eyes. When I followed it, I saw feathers fluttering and dancing against the orange-dyed scenery. Those dark-colored wings had a vivid blue pattern printed upon them. It was a swallowtail butterfly. I was seated on the grass. Shion, who was resting her head on my shoulders, let out a small murmur. Then she opened her eyes.
ああ、アゲハだ。
アゲハチョウ、初めて見た。
そうか？この山じゃ珍しくないんだが。
ここには本当にたくさんの初めてがある。
Shion got up from my shoulder and was staring vacantly at the butterfly.
ねえ、りょう。
ん？
私、寝てた？
ああ、よく寝てた。
We watched as the final ship ascended to space, and then, like someone had flipped a switch, she instantly fell
起こそう
asleep.
かと思ったけど、あまりに気持ちよさそうに寝てたからな。
うん、ありがとう。
It's kind of a
もう十分眠ったか。
sad tune. I mean, they did it. Everyone's in space, and they are now the last two people on Earth.
今はすごくいい気持ち。どこまでも心が澄んでるみたい。
そうか。
I nodded and held the lock of Elika's hair out to her.
風で飛ばされないように預かってた。まあ、しっかり握ってたから、そのままでも大丈夫だっただろうが。
ありがとう。
Shion took the lock and gazed at it
エリ
lovingly.
カ、私の仕事は終わった。何もできなかった私をエリカが救ってくれて。
When Shion smiled, her face looked astonishingly similar to
りょう
Elika's.
がいたから最後の船をこんなにも穏やかな気持ちで見送れた。私は幸せ。
Her whisper was like a song, and as if drawn to that song, the swallowtail landed on her hand. Shion spoke, fascinated by its wings.
とうとう私たちは世界に二人きりになった。
ああ、ここは他にはもう誰もいない世界だ。
I'm pretty sure there's some type of other psychos kind of out there on Earth, not gonna lie.
私にはもう亮しかいない。
Shion sent the swallowtail away with a gentle wave of her hand. The black winged butterfly fluttered away, carried by the
だ
wind.
けどこれが私の望んだ世界。亮と二人の静かで穏やかな世界。
俺の望みもシオンと同じだ。
No further words were necessary. Shion sprung up at me, and I caught her in my arms. I held her small head against my chest. After fully feeling her warmth, I looked down and saw her eyes welling with tears. The sight felt like a needle through my heart.
亮、
Shion touched my cheeks, as if trying to calm me down. Set amidst this now uninhabited world sunsets. Our lips met, ever so softly.
「なすべきことはもはや何もない。あとは幕が下りるのを待つだけだ。彼女が演じた舞台とは違い、今度の舞台にカーテンコールはない。圧倒的なまでの力が全てを終わらせる時が来るまで待つだけの日々。最後の船を見送ったあの日の夜にシオンは倒れ、
Fuck.
それから3日も目を覚まさなかった。
Fuck. The rhythmic sleep breathing I had grown accustomed to changed slightly. I looked up from the paperback I had been reading and shifted my attention to the girl on the bed. Her eyelids slowly lifted, and those crystal clear eyes came into view.
何日経ったの？
With her eyes still pointed at the ceiling, Shion asked me in an unambiguous tone.
3日後のもうすぐ正午になるところだ。
そう。
With that whisper, she suddenly tried to sit upright. It was rash to do that immediately following 3 days of sleep.
もう少し横になってろ。無理をする必要なんてないだろう。それより腹は減ってないか？喉は？
大丈夫。
No, you are not.
起きたいの。
When she insisted this adamantly, I couldn't fight her. Of course, if she wasn't at least this pushy, then she probably wouldn't have been fit to be the project's leader. Using me as support, she slowly picked herself up.
亮、
なんだ？
3日間ずっとそこにいたの？
まさか。
I shook my head and smiled wearily.
畑や鶏の世話もあるし、飯も食わなきゃいけないからな。
それ以外の時間はずっとそこにいたのね。
まあな。
More or less. Since all she was doing was sleeping, her breathing was calm, and she didn't seem to have a fever, I hadn't been too concerned. Still, I couldn't let my guard down. Her condition could change at any time.
座って本を読んでいただけだ。まあ、多少退屈だったかな。
そう。
For some reason, Shion blushed and cast her eyes
ずっ
downward.
とそこで見てたの？
いや、ずっと見てたわけじゃない。たまに様子を確かめてただけだ。
女の子の寝顔を眺めるなんてよくない。
Oh, Shion considers herself female?
シオン、どこかおかしくないか？
亮はちっとも変わってない。
3日やそこらで何が変わるんだ。
This is a new side of Shion.
もういい。外へ行く。
外またか
Girl, you. Last time we went outside, you classed for 3 days. I yelled without meaning to. Shion frowned at my raised voice, but the only one it seemed to be befiddled was me.
3日も横になってたんだぞ。足だって泣いてるだろ
おぶってくれなんて言わない。ちょっと横を支えてくれればいいから。
う。でもな。
明日になったら歩けなくなってるかもしれない。
Her sharp voice and dagger-like glare was quite uncomfortable. Common sense and half-hearted sympathy were meaningless before her ironclad will.
どこへ行きたい
Where do you want to go, Shion?
湖が見たい。
She's fallen apart. Shion walked with a limp in her stride. She leaned on me if she started to fall. Yeah, she leaned on me if she started to fall. But even then, once she regained her bearing, she went straight back to walking on her own. Was she just being stubborn, or could she only see what was in front of her? Whatever it was, she was trying to be strong, even now.
私、ずっと夢を見てたの。
どんな夢だ
思い出せない。でも、とてもいい夢だったと思う。懐かしい人たちの声を聞いた気がするの。
そうか。
ダメだ。
ダメ何がだ
Shion's changed. She has a more RR vibe going about her now. Shion's eyebrows scrunched together, and a dissatisfied frown appeared on her face.
夢の話をするなんて。他人が見た夢なんてどうでもいいことの代表だもの。
どうでもいいことなんかじゃない。シオンはどんな夢を見ているか、俺は気になる。
やっぱりだいぶ頭の回転が悪くなってる。無駄な思考が多くなってるみたい。
無駄だとは思わないさ。前に夢の中でエリカに会った。マヤと一緒に行っていたかもしれない。
リョウはロマンチストだから。
ロマンチスト俺が
Between the two of us, I thought I was the more pragmatic one.
幻想を真に受けて、その上で現実的な思考とすり合わせることができる。よく言えば器用、悪く言えば矛盾の塊。
よくわからないな。
From Shion's point of view, what was an illusion and what was reality?
わからなくていい。
Well, I think Dream with Elka was definitely more of an illusion than anything.
私はそ
But
れ
it
でいい
wasn't a
から。
dream, so who knows? The way Shion spoke and behaved since she awoke were subtly different. The only cause I could think of, it had to be that.
どうかしたの？
I'm confused. What do you mean by that? Oh, like the fact that she knocked out?
いや、なんでもない。
Or was it the kiss? I don't know. What did the kiss we shared mean? Okay. Neither of us were children, so it wasn't worth making a fuss over. We simply got carried away by the mood. My gut told me this was closest to the truth. Of course, it wasn't such a minor event that we could pretend it had never happened either.
悩まなくていい。
え？
リョウは私が持っていける思い出を一つ増やしてくれた。だから私は嬉しいの。それだけ。
In these silent mountains, her voice resonated wondrously in my heart. Okay, so she knows exactly what Ryo's thinking about. I appreciate the time we were spending together all over again. It was something very special to me. Alright, where is this going now? Where is this going now? In the end, it took almost twice as long as usual to reach the lake. Shion appeared quite tired and sat down immediately after we arrived at the shore. At present, her breathing was steadily but frantic. I poured some water into the lid of the canteen I had brought along.
ほら、シオン。
ありがとう。
慌てずにゆっくり飲めよ。
子供じゃないの。
She didn't appreciate my remark, but took the lid and gulped it down all the same. Oh my god. It was no surprise she choked and gasped for air.
おい、何やってるんだ。
What was that?
だって。
ほら、今度こそ落ち着いてな。
I took the lid from her hand, filled it again, and handed it back. She tilted the lid slightly and drank it a little at a time. What are these noises, man?
落ち着いたか。
She nodded and returned the lid.
美味しかった。
点滴なんてないしな。この3日は湿らせた布で唇を拭いていただけだ。
唇？
Shion stared, her eyes fixed upon me. She seemed to be blushing a little.
りょう？
なんだ。
I may not have been blushing, but I couldn't stay calm either. Shion's figure may have retained some immature features, but she was still an unparalleled beauty. Whoa, Ryou, hold on there. What are you thinking about? I know you're the last two people on the world, so all those morals and world and laws don't mean anything anymore. But Ryou, please. Any straight man alive who could look at her and show no reaction must surely have some sort of mental defect.
キスして。
Yo, I'm totally for that, Ryou. Totally for that. And here, I've been wondering what she'd say next.
悪いが、そんな冗談に付き合えるほど俺も緩んでない。
りょうと話してると時々腹が立つことがある。
He treated it like a joke.
君でも怒ることがあるんだな。
人間だもの。
Shion's face went back to the way it always was as she declared that nonchalantly. Whatever may happen, it seems she would always switch gears at the same speed.
りょう、ありがとう。
何が？
いつも私を見ていてくれて。
Ryou, if you don't kiss this damn girl.
いちいちそんなことで礼を言ってたらキリがない。
もうそんなに機会は多くないと思う。
Shion picked up a pebble by her feet. After playing with it in her hand for a while, she threw it into the lake. The pebble, which fell shockingly close, sent tiny ripples across the water
これまで
surface.
もシオンの眠りは長かった。でも3日も寝ていたのはこれが初めてだな。
一度も目覚めずにというのは初めて。
Shion picked up another pebble and whispered
つま
that.
りどうなんだ。フェリクスっていうのは。
フェリクスの死に方？
I remained silent and confiscated the pebble from
簡
her
単に
hand.
説明すると、長い眠りと短い覚醒を繰り返して、そのうち二度と目覚めなくなる。
So she's just
これが
failing.
典型的なフェリクスの衰弱と最後。発熱やめまいは衰弱が始まる前の予兆ってところ。
I threw the pebble with all my strength. Far off in the distance, there was a quiet plunk and another set of ripples. Shion clapped her hands silently in admiration.
確かに君は。だがエリカの場合は。
Elika was fucking murdered, okay, Ryou?
私が見た限りでも、エリカの睡眠や日常活動に特に異常はなかった。
You can't say that about Elika's death. She was murdered.
それどころか、あの研究所での最後の日にエリカは兵士を数人叩きのめしていた。しかも普通の兵隊じゃない。君を守るために選抜された特別な連中だ。
They were nothing compared to me or Lobby, but their skills should have been sufficient. At the very least, a feeble, debilitated girl shouldn't have been able to hold her own.
フェリクスがみんな必ずしも同じ死に方をするとは限らない。
Really now?
だけど、
I'm looking forward to playing next time, Weeb. Unfortunately, if I play tonight, I won't go to bed, so gotta call it quits early today. I noticed a bitter expression on Shion's face for a brief
今思え
moment.
ばエリカは薬物で症状を抑えていたのかもしれない。
薬物だと。
エリ
Medication?
カには医学の心得があったし、フェリックスの死亡原因についても詳しく調べてた。私を少しでも長く生きさせるために。その調査中に睡眠を抑え込む薬を見つけ出していたのかもしれない。
なら
Okay, Huib.
その薬が
Respect.
何なのか分かれ
I
ば
was so
シ
sure,
オ
I
ン
was
に
so
も
sure you were just continuing on ahead without me.
ダメ。
Shion readily shook her head.
そんな薬があると仮定しても長い眠りに落ちないというだけ。プログラムされた死を避けられるわけじゃない。
もしも症状を緩和できる薬だったら真っ先にシオンに飲ませてるか。
Not to mention, Elika had written a single line about such a medicine in the note she'd left.
もしかするとエリカが自分に何らかの処置を施していたとして、睡眠や衰弱を抑え込む代わりに何か副作用があったのかもしれない。
そういえばあの時
Lavi's knife didn't hit anywhere vital, and she hadn't suffered a lethal amount of blood loss. Even if the wound from the knife was the impetus, could it have been something else that brought her to such a quick end?
弱った体では私を外に出せないから、余命を縮めてでも
I guess that,
動ける体を維持しようとしたのか
the
も。
reason why she died so easily was because she was already kind of dying fast. I guess that's interesting.
だからエリカはリョウがいてくれたことが嬉しかったんだと思う。
Respect, Weeb, respect.
自分がいなくなった後を引き継いでくれる人だから。エリカはきっと喜んでる。
What a sweet conversation they're having. Shion's smiling face greatly resembled Elika's. It may have been natural given that they were like sisters, but I truly believe that those two took after one another. It was clear to me that Shion had inherited Elika's
喜
kindness.
んでるか。そうだといいな。
でも結局は全て家庭の話。真実は私にもわからない。私の時間を延ばすことは誰にもできない。
Would the days where I just watched over her as she slept her deep sleep continue? Helplessly sitting by her side was sure to be a painful, far more than crawling around a battlefield ever was.
シオンどこかに旅に出てみるか。
どこかってどこ？
どこだっていいさ。
I mean, we have the whole world to
もう
explore.
俺たちを追う者はいない。邪魔をする者もいない。
Yeah,
この世界のどこにだって行ける。
it shouldn't be too hard to find a car or helicopter, and it wasn't like they had taken all the fuel into space.
ここには四季なんてものはなくても、暑い土地や寒い土地、珍しい自然や建物がある場所はいくらでもある。
ありがとう、リョウ。
I saw a smile form on Shion's
だけ
face.
どやっぱり私はここでいい。ここでリョウと最後まで一緒にいられればそれでいいの。
She plopped her head onto my shoulder. Oh, fuck! No! Oh my god, Baz. Yo, you madman. Yo, thank you for the host. No, thank you for the raid. Do appreciate it. How's it going, dude? I keep forgetting to remove the echo. I keep forgetting to remove the echo. How's it going, Baz? Hope you had a good stream, dude. We're pretty much at the end of this game. We're at the end. I softly wrapped my arm around her shoulder. And then we shared a kiss, let's go! This time, I pushed my lips against her a bit more forcefully, so that I could trace her soft, slightly cold lips. Rio, that's my man.
緩んでないって言った たのに。
そうだったか。
I hugged her slender shoulder even tighter. She didn't resist and cuddled up to me.
りょう、私ちょっと怒ってる。
さっきのことか。
It apparently wasn't a joke that she wanted me to kiss her, so her anger was reasonable.
それもあるけど、もう一つ。
Oh, you better mention Maya.
マヤとキスした。
Ah, there we go. She mentioned Maya.
あれは
That was assault. That was assault. That was literally assault. That was beyond my control. I never imagined Maya would do something like that in a million
私
years.
だって怒ることはあるし、そういう感情もあるの。
Hey, Maya was helping him out, all right? You wouldn't be having those emotions if Maya didn't take the kiss from him. By those sort of emotions, did she mean jealousy?
でも今俺がキスできるのはシオンだけだ。
You really are romantic,
も
Ryou.
う私たちしかいないもの。
誰がいても同じことだ。
If Shion was the only person left in the world, would you still date her? I think the answer's quite obvious here. Shion said nothing and stared straight at me. There was no wind. There was a tense silence like the lake, grass forest, like the entire mountain had fallen into a
い
slumber.
ないと。いないと、りょうは女の扱い方が分かってる人？
Oh, he does. Shion blushed and was grumbling something seemingly to
そ
herself.
んなものわからないさ。ただ俺は自分の思っていることを口に出してるだけだ。
Chad, very
だったら
Chad.
私も自分の思うことを言ってもいい？
あ
I gave her a firm nod. We were both pretty awkward when it came to this. However, now that we are all alone, now that our own words were the only words that would ever reach each other, it would be nice if we could speak our minds honestly.
ねえ、りょう、
なんだ。
Our eyes came together and we whispered to each other. There was no need to raise our voices. Gently speaking to one another was enough for us to understand each other.
私のこの手が自由に動かせる間に、私がこの現実であなたに入る間に、もっとあなたに触れたい。
We all know what that means. Alright, we all know what that means. Okay, we all know what that means. Okay. This is definitely the end. Alright, this is definitely the end. Metal, where the heck you at? Where the hell are you, Metal? I haven't seen you in a minute.
もっとあなたにキスしてほしい。
She's asking for it now. She's asking for it. We got to this point, guys. We finally did it. And then, after a short pause, she pointed her unwavering eyes at me and spoke once more.
私好きだから。私はあなたが好きだから。
あ
I couldn't come up with much to say in response to Shion's feelings.
俺も同じ気持ちだよ。
Daegu, don't say it like that. Oh, that's so awkward hearing you say that. After finally mustering up the guts to say it, I realized something. They were here all along. All the emotions I was never able to harbor for anyone, not for my sisters, for Elika, nor for Labi, were right here in my heart.
シオン、俺はこれからも君とずっと一緒にいる。
ずっと一緒。
As she whispered that, she softly closed her eyes. I silently held her in my arms. We didn't say a word to each other when we returned home. We just laid side by side in bed. Not sleeping, but not talking about anything either. We held each other's hands upon the narrow bed, looked up at the ceiling, and gazed at each other. occasionally kissed. We leisurely spent that calming, simple time together. We were shrouded in a mysterious euphoria, like we remembered something very precious. What put an end to that time was the sound of Shion's stomach.
でも
3日も何も食ってなかったもんな、シオンは。
I lightly kissed her. I lightly kissed her cheek as she shyly hung her head.
何か食べるものを用意してくる。どうする？今の方で食べるか？
ここに持ってきて。
了解だ。
I kissed her once more, this time on the lips, and stood up. Yo, he's okay. Yeah, that's hers.
早く戻ってきてね。
あ。
On reflex, I reached for the handgun beside my bed. I drew my hand back, like...
りょう？
いや、なんでもない。
Buddy, who are you gonna fucking shoot? Guns were no longer necessary. Shion and I were the only two on the planet. Not really, but I'm pretty sure there's some other psycho on the planet. On the other side. No longer was there anything or anyone who would threaten us. From now on, I just had to be by her side. That alone would be enough. Returning quickly was a top priority, which meant there was no time for hesitating. Shion probably couldn't eat all that much, and strangely enough, I wasn't all that hungry either. We had plenty of rice and I found some salmon flakes after quickly looking through the shelves.
鮭のおにぎりでいいか。あとは山菜も少しあるから細かく刻んで混ぜよう。
2 kinds of rice balls and some pickled vegetables ought to do it. I could always open another can if it didn't look like it was going to be enough. Hurry up, Ryou, hurry. With that decided, I got right to work. I decided to boil some water first and grab the kettle. Alright. How long did you take, Ryou? I quickly had 5 rice balls ready, prepared some pickled vegetables and warm tea, and returned to the bedroom. However, the room was empty! For a moment I wondered if her having woken up had all been a dream. That couldn't be possible. I distinctly remembered how soft she was when I hugged her, and how her lips felt against mine. Why you do this, Shion? I set down a tray somewhere within reach and immediately left the room. Not here. Not here either. There was only one place left. As I went outside, a chilly wind blew against me. I'd noticed the temperature had been dropping lately, but the difference at night compared to earlier was remarkable. The sounding climate might have begun changing as well. Yeah, now's not the time to be doing this shit. I murmured and started to run, but immediately stopped.
Shion.
Then she stood a short distance away, unmoving, just standing there, with her back to me. She stood so still. It was as if she wasn't even breathing.
Shion.
I tried to call out to her once more, but she didn't show any response.
どうしたんだ、シオン。こんなところにいたら風邪をひく。
I grabbed and tugged her shoulder.
何？
シオン。
Aww, those eyes. Aww. When she turned around, her face looked like a blank slate. Her empty, hollow eyes sent chills down my spine.
呼んでいるの？
What?
呼んでる？
一緒に行こうってみんなが。
Yo,
Shion!
that's death! Snap out of it! Shion's body shook violently, like she'd been struck by lightning. Now is not the time for this shit.
りょう？
The light returned to her eyes. Her ordinary, slightly surely, yet deeply radiant eyes.
だよな。
りょう、何してるの？
それはこっちのセリフだ。
She tilted her head, seemingly unaware of what was going on.
しっかりしろ。 ここが現実だ。俺がいるここが君の現実なんだ。
うん、そうか。
Well, that's not good.
そうだ。
I was a bit relieved to see her nodding over and over. I had thought this for a while now, but Shion might be far too sensitive for her own good. Her nerves were so hypersensitive, anything could trigger a reaction from her.
分かってる。私の普通じゃないことは。
普通じゃなくても構わない。だけど間違わないでくれ。
何を？
今この世界で君を呼べるのは俺だけだ。他の誰の声が聞こえても君は行ってはいけない。そこに行っても誰にも会えない。君はここで生きているんだ。そのことを。
それでもどこかに行きそうになったら私を引き止めてくれる？
何度でも。
ありがとう。
If she only had a little more time remaining. I wanted her to be by my side when the end came, and I wanted to be by her side too. If we reunited with those who had already left us afterwards, I was sure it wouldn't be too late. Okay, that was a little concerning, but it looks like they're still kind of dragging the story on. Something was beginning to change, that much was certain. We could hear no birds chirping in the morning, nor the echo of the mountain streams that had ceased to flow, and the green leaves glistening with the previous night's dew had darkened. They were small, easily overlooked changes, but they were happening all around us. Ordinarily, she might have noticed these little details. However, that was probably impossible with the way she was now. Because what had changed the most these past days was her.
ただいま。
Though I knew there was nobody there to answer, I called out before I entered the living room regardless. I placed the veggies I had harvested while out on my morning rounds onto the
最
table.
近育ちが悪くなってきたな。
They were genetically modified to have a superior shape, taste, and rate of growth when compared to traditional vegetables too. All the same, it was more than enough for two. At least for now, anyway. There was some sort of strange buzzing sound. I looked around and immediately found the source of the noise.
すっかり忘れてたな。
Elika's radio. We hadn't had any reception in a long time, so it was mostly for decoration. I could just turn it off, but the batteries would probably die soon anyways. May as well leave it be. For now, I decided to make breakfast. I picked out a box and pre-packaged stew from the shelf. Although we hadn't been able to bring in many vegetables lately, we had plenty of those preserved goods. It was ironic in a way that the food I prepared for when Shion was supposed to stay here on her own was now feeding mostly me. I decided to whip up an egg dish while heating up the stew pack. I cracked the egg into a bowl, beat them, then stirred in salt and pepper. After putting some butter in the frying pan and heated it, I poured in the eggs and scrambled it all
こんな
together.
ものか。
The flavor would be a bit lacking since it had no milk, but it was unavoidable. I put the scrambled eggs onto the plate and went to check on the stew. It looked like it was just about right. Okay, what's gonna happen here? I knocked quietly, then entered Shion's room without waiting for her to
おは
answer.
よ
There was no response from the master of the room, laying in her bed. I set our tray of breakfast down somewhere, handy for the moment, and approached her
う。シオ
bed.
ン、
I addressed her once more. Still no reply. How many times have I repeated this very routine? I gazed at the peacefully sleeping girl.
もうそろそろ起きてもいい頃だろう。シオン。
I guess that's that, huh? I gently took her hand. She was a bit cold, and it seemed as though she had gotten a little thinner than before.
寝てばかりでちゃんと食べないからだな。
She ate more than matched her small frame when she was awake too. I began to softly stroke her hand. It was likely meaningless, but I couldn't help it. I wanted to do something, anything at all I could for her.
はい。
Oh! No one heard that I got surprised with her. I was taken by surprise and let go of her hand. Okay, that's what I call being in trance. Fuck. Upon another glance at Shion's face, her eyes had certainly opened.
シオン。
何度も呼ばないの。
Though her voice was quiet and hoarse, she seemed fully
りょ
lucid.
う元気
それは俺のセリフだ。
よかった。
よかった。
Shion cocked her head and looked at me with
眠
amusement.
っている間に世界が終わってなくて。
もしも週末が来ても、君が生きてる限り、俺が死なせない。
What? If the end does come, as long as you're alive, I won't let you die.
りょうも死なない？
死んでたまるか。
It'll take. I'm built different, yo. It'll take more than the world being destroyed to kill me. He's using that
死
line.
に。
He's gonna intervene. A fleeting smile crossed her
りょ
lips.
うなら生き残れそうな気がする。世界の最後なんてどうでもいいことみたいに思えてしまう。
This is depressing.
本当に。
This is so depressing now. The finale that she had spent her life to oppose now was no longer of any concern. No matter what might happen, I would protect the peaceful time remaining to Shion, even if it cost me my life.
けどよく寝た。
寝すぎだ、君は。
そう？
Her head moved slightly. It looked like she meant to tilt her head. It broke my heart seeing her in pain from such a slight movement.
寝ている間に私にいたずらとかは？
してない。
It looked like her mind was already up and running. I'll bet in the wrong direction.
そう。してないの。
She's kind of disappointed.
当たり前だろうが。
どうしても我慢できなくなったらしてもいいから。
君は俺を獣か何かと思ってないか？
I don't know, but some of us in the chat is kind of animals about that idea.
男の人ってそういうものだって聞いた。
君のそちら方面の知識はやや極端だ。そうだ。
I knew she loved Elika, but it was a bit troubling how she ate up everything that Maid said to her.
だけどりょう、
いや、もうその話はいいだろう。
Now let her enjoy it.
何もできないから。りょうが喜ぶなら何でもいいのに。
Feels weird, man.
だったら一つ頼みがある。
Wait, yo, what?
何？
もう少し早く起きてくれ。
Yeah.
君が眠ってばかりだと退屈で仕方ないんだ。
りょう、ごめん。
Shion slowly raised her
なんと
hand.
か手が温かい。りょうが温めてくれたの？
それくらいしかできないからな。
I held her hand one more time, both my hand wrapped around hers gently yet firmly.
りょう、ダメ。
何がだ？
そんなに優しくされたら、なんでもない。
何でもって。
I started to follow up, but held my tongue. When I saw the troubled look on her face, I couldn't speak anymore. Being kind to her, giving her more memories, that might be a heavy burden for a girl nearing the end of her life.
りょう、私からもお願いがあるの。
ああ、何でも言ってくれ。
お風呂に入りたい。
え？
お願い。
Shion's smile looked just a little vicious. Wait, oh no. Okay. I set some iced tea on the table and Shion immediately took it in my
いただ
hand.
きます。
She drank it down immediately. She must have been hot after getting out of the bath.
おいしい。
そんなに感動するようなことじゃないだろ
おかわり。
う。一杯だけだ。冷たいものはあまり体に良くないだろう。
Oh my god, she's making that face again.
そんな恨みがましい目をしてもダメだ。
最近の亮はエリカに似てきた。
それは素直には喜べない評価だな。
I grinned, and Shion, a little dejected, flicked the rim of her now empty glass with her finger.
まあでもいい。やっと一緒にお風呂に入ってくれたし。
He had no choice, did he? This time it was my turn to be a little upset. I couldn't let her get in the bath alone in her condition. There was nothing we could do, so I had no choice but to wash her hair and body for her.
嬉しかった？
Bruh, she tilted her head and asked me without any expression on her face.
別に。
You can't say that now! That's not the right
やっ
answer!
ぱり私がこんな体型だから？
そういうことじゃない。考えてみれば、無理して風呂に入らずに体を拭くだけにしておけばよかったんだよな。
そんなの気持ちよくない。
あのな、そういえば、なんでシオンは一人で入浴するのを嫌がってたんだ？
As she thought it over a moment, Shion's cheeks turned red for some
髪
reason.
を洗ってる時に後ろに誰かいるような気がするの。
普通というか、なんというか。それ
Yeah.
で、以前は毎回エリカに付き合わせてたのか。
だって怖いものは怖いの。
She may have been pretty old, but she still had her childish tendencies. Setting aside her intellectual capacity, her mental age might just suit her appearance more.
亮にだって怖いものくらい。
The radio. She seemed to have noticed it
何
too.
か聞こえたな。
多分そのラジオ。
How the fuck? I turned my attention to the radio that sat where Shion was pointing. I too heard something other than static coming from it. Had the electromagnetic interference gone down? It had been a long time, such a very long
一体
time.
どこから電波が。
I stood up, approached the radio, and adjusted the volume. I could hear something resembling music, but it was hard to make out with all the static mixed
ど
in.
こかのラジオ局が無人のまま放送してるのか。もしかすると宇宙から衛星を経由して電波がここまで届いているのかも。
よくわからないな。
I guess those are possible. This radio was always turned to the station that broadcasted Elika's favorite musical program. Even if we tried turning it to other stations, we just got
この
static.
ラジオ自体も調子悪いしな。なかなか。
Yo, this game was like early 2000s, honestly. This is like an early 2000s visual novel. Or like, it's over 10 years old. After a few minutes of adjusting the volume and turning.
何か聞こえた。
Oh, well, it's blasting now.
聞こえたな。
I stopped adjusting it and listened closely. Shion seemed to be focusing her senses in the same way.
音楽。
そうだな。
昔はまだ電波が普通に受信できた頃はこうやって
俺も一度エリカと一緒に聞いたことがある。
私にはもう遠くて懐かしい思い出になった。遠くて眩しいくらい。
I miss Elika.
シオン。
Her eyes were slowly shutting. The strength left in her tiny body had and her head jolted violently. Then suddenly her eyes
お
opened.
かしい。
With a vacant whisper, she rubbed her eyes awkwardly.
シオン。眠いのか？
おかしい。たくさん寝てさっき起きたばかりなのに。
シオン。
Perhaps she didn't even have the strength remaining to stay awake. rather than recovering strength while she slept, could she actually be losing it?
せっかくここでの生活で体力がついたのに。りょう、山の様子はどうなの？
山？
Like always, she abruptly switched
本当の
topics.
ことを言って。
あまり良くない。草も木も、畑の野菜も、湖の魚も、山のすべてが。
死に始めてる？もしかしたら、世界そのものが。
大丈夫だ。
I blindly
も
declared.
しこの山が死んでも、他に行くあてはいくらでもある。俺とシオンの時間は、逃げ出すことから始まったんだ。だから、どこまでだって逃げてやる。
私は、本当は逃げてはいけなかった。
Bruh, what? Her tone changed. It was like flipping a switch. It had been quite a long time since she had been so explicit.
私が外の世界を夢見たりしなければ、エリカはもっと長く生きられた。
No, Shion, no, 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 don't have any regrets.
私のためだけに生きてくれたエリカを、姉さんを殺したのは、
No, you can't go to sleep like this.
姉さんを刺したあの人を恨むことなんて、最初からできなかった。そんな資格、私にはな
She's
い。
having a breakdown. She really is losing it.
私を守ってくれた人をみんな殺してしまう。姉さんだけじゃない。稲葉少佐も。
Oh, she knows. She knows! She knew that the mayor was no longer alive. Keeping quiet about it must have been tough on her.
それに、あなたも、人を救った。救ったつもりになっても、本当に大事な人を。大事な人を傷つけ、失ってしまう。
Shion hung her head over the table, shoulders squawking. Oh God, the room echoed with the pitter-patter of droplets.
シオン。
She was crying. I couldn't see her face, but the tears just kept coming. The static-riddled music was the only other sound in the room. That beautiful melody now sounded helplessly melancholic.
君は誰も殺していない。
I held back my sorrows and spoke from the heart. If I didn't say it now, there would likely never be an opportunity to erase her
そし
regrets.
て、これからも誰も死なせない。シオン、君は俺に目的を与えてくれたんだ。
Shion quietly gasped.
ただなんとなく生きて、罪を重ね続けて、死んでいないというだけだった俺に、本当に生きている実感をくれたのは、君と過ごした時間だった。多分、エリカも少佐も同じだったんじゃないか。君が作った船に乗って旅立った人たちもいる。君が生んだ希望が、新しい世界でいつか芽吹く。
And Lavi and Maya will be there on mankind's new home. Those who had gotten to know Shion and died, and those who would live on. Not one of them had or would ever resent her. I was sure of that.
誰も後悔なんてしていない。それが自分の選択だったんだ。だから君も悔やむことなんてない。
違う。悔やんでるんじゃないの。
When she looked up at me, I could see her face was still wet from the tears. She stared straight at me, a look of dignity upon her face.
私はただ、好きな人を守りたかった。
それじゃあ、下ろすぞ。
With Shion in my arms, I slowly laid her down on the bed. Sitting in a chair in the living room was more than she could manage, so I had no choice but to go back to bed.
ありがとう。
気にするな。
Straight up vegetable, dude. I lightly brushed her bangs from her eyes. Shion giggled with
何か
embarrassment.
欲しいものはあるか？
ある。 手を握って。
そんなことでいいのか？
I grinned and took hold of her hand. She squeezed back weakly.
りょう、
ん？
さっきは泣いてごめん。
それも気にしなくていいことだ。
今のうちに全部言っておきたかったの。
そうか。
The window frame clattered quietly. The wind had picked up.
今日もいい天気。
そうだな。太陽の光だけは変わらないな。
本当に
静かだな。
静かに終わりゆく世界で、私は最初で最後の。
She whispered to herself and gave a brilliant smile. Her smile felt fleeting and looked like it might disappear any second, but was so beautiful I could never forget it. I prayed from the bottom of my heart for Shion's love, her happiness, to last as long as possible. I wanted her to live as long as she could.
シオン、
And she had fallen asleep, with a smile still on her face. Her hand was still tightly gripping mine. The sight of her breathing tranquility in her sleep, I adored it from the bottom of my heart. The end was definitely on its way, both hers and the world's, but all the same, it would be great if an infinitesimal, or what kind of word? Infinitesimal silver of hope could arise from this cruel reality. And so I prayed.
彼女が永遠に眠るその日まで。世界よ、どうか終わらないでくれ。
How romantic.
それからシオンは数日、覚醒と睡眠を繰り返した。いつ目覚めるのか、そこに法則性はないようだった。一日で目覚めることもあれば、3日眠り続けることもある。シオンが目覚めた時に、一人で寂しくないように、俺はできる限り彼女のそばに居続けた。眠っている間は手を握り、目覚めた時はとにかくいろいろな話をした。たわいのない子供の頃の思い出をお互いに話して笑い合う。ささやかでとても満ち足りた時間が流れていった。彼女がまた眠りに落ちてしまうまで。そんな日々がしばらく続き、そして彼女は